Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Cohen, and I'm going to be your professor this semester for COMM 305, which is actually going to be COMM 205 in the future, but that doesn't really matter to you. And it's all about motion picture appreciation, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means later on. But basically, it's about movies and TV and stuff. And if you're watching this, then you already know that the reason I'm talking to you on a moving image is because we're not going to meet in class. And that is because, as I mentioned in my email, I kind of get annoyed when everybody comes for 2.5 hours for the first class, and then, you know, somebody just adds it on like Sunday later after, and then they're like, what did I miss? And I'm like, well, like 2.5 hours of like stuff. So I have found it to be a lot easier if I just like make a recording so that way people can watch it no matter when they add the class. Syllabus day for all. You can share it with your friends, make a whole event out of it. And also this will allow you, if needed, you can go back and, refresh yourself on information about the syllabus if this is a format that's comfortable for you. But that is what we're going to do. And actually, on that note, I was going to say, I was going to introduce you to me and some of my animals, whoever's around. That's Jolene in the background. This is Spike, the pug. It's kind of my special needs pug. I mean, all pugs are special needs, but Okay, let me share my screen, and I've got a little PowerPoint up here. Hold on one moment. Um, Buddy, you're gonna have to settle down. Spike, 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 spike. Okay, so now you should be able to see PowerPoint here. All right. So first, I just wanted to give you a really quick introduction about myself. You don't need to know a whole lot, but I am qualified to teach this class. I guess that's the important part. I watch a lot of TV, so that makes me qualified, right? Technically, the type of professor I'm a media psychologist. I have a PhD in public communication, and what I do is I spend a lot of time doing research about how people watch the media and how it affects their various aspects of their psychology. I'm actually really interested in emotional reactions to different types of media content. And I'm also really interested in entertainment media content. So I don't do as much stuff with like news media per se, but I do a lot of stuff with like books and television and dramas and things like that. I've been at WVU for 12 years now, or I guess we're going into my 13th year. And personally, I am married to a journalist. We like the media stuff, and I have a bunch of animals. I love my animals. So again, this is Spike. That is, I think you see Jolene in the background. She's probably going to be annoying. She usually spends her time outside guarding the chickens. I have a lot of chickens. I love my chickens. I'll talk about them. And I have another pug who's on the floor right now, but he says hi. And I have a cat named Eggnog. So that's my family, and I like putting pictures of them in my PowerPoint presentations. But I have pictures of other people's animals too, so you can look forward to that. Um, okay, without further ado, let's just kind of go through some of the highlights of the syllabus. If you want, you can follow along. You can download the syllabus. You can fast forward through this if you're able to read on your own. I totally get that. But it's, syllabus day, so let's just get crazy. So I have down here, you'll notice, at least right now, by the time you get the syllabus, I might even change this. I've got my office hours from on Mondays and Wednesdays. That might change. And the reason is because you'll see I have some teaching assistants down here. These are all students who actually have already taken the class, and they're going to be helping me do some grading this semester. And depending on their schedule, I might actually kind of schedule office hours around their schedule. I'm not really sure. Right now, Mondays and Wednesdays, we're in Field Hall, which that is actually the old business building. It used to be Chambers if you were here like a couple years ago. And we just moved in. It looks like such a dump right now. So if you want to come by and see my lovely dump, it's going to look like really, really smooth, like within a month. But you can find me there on Mondays and Wednesdays for sure. But my whole thing is like, I always like an appointment, even if it's during my office hours. And the reason for that is severalfold, but the one that I think is most relevant to you is that if lots of people come to my office hours, which they normally don't, but towards the end of the semester, crazy things happen. then it's like you have to wait until I'm done talking to somebody else. So it's actually always easier and better if you can just like hit me up with an email and be like, hey, is it okay if I come by at this time? And it doesn't even have to be during my office hours. Like, I don't want you to think that office hours are the only time I'm around. I can make appointments. So just email me is what I always advise. And pop-ins are kind of weird anyway, but that's a never different thing. So that's the important thing there. Some good news. I hope you'll find it good news. There is a book for this class, but it's free. You don't have to buy it. It's one of these open access books. So there's a link to it here, and you can access all of the chapters, online. The great thing about this textbook is that because it is online, it actually, you can have streaming clips. So you can actually look at examples of what the textbook's talking about and actually see moving image examples right there. So, the digital revolution, it's amazing. Now, even with the book, I like this is such a controversial thing for a professor to say, but you might not even need to read it. It really kind of depends. I will be giving you quizzes each week, which I'll talk about in a second. But what you need for those quizzes is basically my lectures. I'm not going to quiz you on anything that is not in my lectures. So technically you don't need the book, but it might really help you when you're doing some papers that are due for this class. So whatever the case is, you don't have to buy anything. So free is good, right? And this right here is how the grade distribution is going to be broken down in this class. You can read on your own, but what I want to point out here is like you'll see that the big parts of your grade come from quizzes, which you're going to get every week. There's going to be if you want full credit, and some of you might not want full credit, but you need to do at least 10 quizzes. I'm going to be offering 13 throughout the semester. So what does that mean? It means that if you miss 3 of them, it wouldn't even hurt your grade. Okay. Honestly, even if you turned in 9, it just means that you would, 9 out of 13, yeah, you would be losing 10 points, but that's not necessarily the end of the world either. But again, I just want you to see proportionally that like almost like half the points in this class come from these quizzes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The other half comes from 2 paper assignments that you're going to get where you're actually going to write about some examples of film. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this now. We'll talk about it more in class as the deadline gets there. But those are the big things. And then you have these kind of like smaller assignments, and 2 of them are actually due this week. One of them is a really short assessment of how you write about film, and it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just to give me an idea of like, how you already write about film so that like when we talk about it later on, I know like what I want to cover. You need to do a syllabus quiz, kind of meta. It's like, I'm going to quiz you on the stuff I'm talking about right now. And part of what I'm talking about right now is the syllabus quiz, and, round and round we go. And then at the end of the semester, I'm going to have you do a second assessment that's just like the first one. Again, you're not going to be graded on right or wrong or anything like that. It's just whether or not you do it or not. And, that will just help me understand, like, did the things that I implemented in class work or not? So that's it. Quizzes, couple papers, and then some miscellaneous small baby assignments that, again, you can pretty much get out of the way this week. Attendance. Okay, this is an important one, and it's kind of confusing, even though I think the only reason it might be confusing is because it's so easy. Technically, there is no attendance policy. I'm never going to call roll. I'm never going to this is really important. I never need an excuse for an absence. There should be no reason for that, because an excused absence implies that like, oh, there's something like an unexcused absence. But in this class, if you can't make it to class, that's okay. Now, those quizzes I just talked about, the only way you can take those quizzes is if you're in class, okay? If you don't come to class, then you can't take a quiz. But remember what I just said, if you miss 2, 3 quizzes, it doesn't even count against your grade. So another way to look at this is you've kind of got like freebies, right? So there's a certain number of days that you can just miss class, and yeah, you might miss a quiz, but it's not going to hurt your grade, okay? That said, yeah, you could look at this as an attendance policy, because it does mean that if you start to miss more than 3 classes, then it could affect your quiz grade. Does that make sense? have a quiz that day. So yeah, I guess so, but let me put this in perspective. Because we only meet like once a week, one class is the equivalent of like two classes of a class that meets twice a week. So this is saying basically in the semester, you can miss the equivalent of 6 classes and not even have it affect your grade. So again, there's not technically an attendance policy, but you need to come probably enough to like most of your assignments. Ah, there she goes. There she goes. Okay, now everybody's going. I might just edit this out. This is what happens because, I'm a moving image professor, so I know these magical tricks. We'll see if they shut up. Okay, so far so good. So, yeah, so the other thing I want to say about this is like, this also sort of applies to if you end up leaving class early. And I just want to say, there is no shame in coming to class late or having to leave class early. It happens to everyone. Honestly, it'll probably happen to me at some point. Of course, I'm not trying to get a grade in the class, so it's a little different, but oh, here's Jolene, by the way. Now there she is. Okay. So if you come to class and let's say that you start your quiz and the way these quizzes work is like I sort of alluded to, if you just sit there and follow the lecture, you can get all the answers you need for the quizzes. Maybe you won't get it 100% right. Sometimes, you do have to pay extra good attention, but like I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to get 100%, but it is I try to make it so that if you come to class and if you pay attention, you should have a pretty easy time getting an A on your quizzes. But what if you come to class and you leave early? Well, you can get partial credit on your quiz. I'm going to have what's called a box of shame. I actually don't even know if it'll be a box or not, but it'll be something where if you need to leave early, if you got to skip out, then you just put your quiz in the box. And I will take off some points, but you still get partial credit. So again, is it an attendance policy? I don't know. I mean, certainly I'm trying to reward people for being there and encouraging you to come and pay attention, but I don't want you to look at it as necessarily like a problem if you can't come, so long as it doesn't become something where you miss a whole bunch of classes. So we'll keep talking about this, I'm sure, because like I said, it's kind of confusing, but only because I think it's really simple. I think the message is come as much as you can, but if you can't come, there's enough safety net to the class built in that it shouldn't be a huge problem. And by the way, this applies to everyone. This applies to if you can't come to class because of COVID, you athletes, make sure that if you have, tournaments that are scheduled towards the end of the semester, like you sort of save your freebies for that time. Like I'm happy to sign like that. Yeah, I know that you're leaving or whatever, but this is across the board. I'm really just trying to make everything pretty fair. So that's it. So, okay. Now, this is a really quick one. The only thing I want you to know, so if you go back and you look at this point distribution, it has this nice little grading scale right here. And this is true. It's like you can always figure out, what your grade is in this class if you just look at like how many points you get on all the assignments. But here's the catch. It's this 10 quizzes thing, because at some point you might have more than 100 points in quizzes. If you do, let's say, because remember, I'm only going to count 10 quizzes, but if I give you 13, you could end up with 130 points. So eCampus doesn't know how to calculate that. So you have to kind of like keep track of your points yourself. What's going to happen at the end of the semester is like, I'm going to look at your grade, I'm going to put it in a spreadsheet, and I'm only going to take 10 quiz grades. Okay. So there's a manual component to this. So, oh, I don't know what happened there. Sorry. That's like, whatever. Oh, this is so, where did oh no, I'm sorry. I'm like looking at, you're like, lady, what is wrong with you? I totally get that. Hold on a second. Let me fix this. I don't know how that got in there. Okay. Oh, how embarrassing. By the way, that's going to happen all the time. Okay. If she keeps up, I'll mute her and start screaming and make sure it doesn't traumatize anyone. Okay, so monitoring academic progress. This is the slide that I wanted you to see. So, yeah, the whole point is like you've got to kind of monitor your grade, but just make sure you don't let eCampus do too much of it for you. It is mostly good at calculating your grade, and I'll put grades in and stuff like that, but it's not 100% perfect. So just be cautious about that. I'll remind you, as we go through the semester. Okay, I am going to mute for 1 second. Just hold on. Okay, well, I just decided to edit that out. Jolene is fine now. Okay, so we're back to where we were. So okay, so calculate your own grade, and now I want to talk about like content warnings, trigger warnings, those type of things. Like a lot of people I think have a misunderstanding about what a trigger warning is. It is not some sort of like, oh, we're all snowflakes and, some people can't handle it or whatever. It just is an acknowledgement that like sometimes if you don't know what you're going to see, stuff can really surprise you and it might even like get into your subconscious a little bit and bring out something like some sort of emotional reaction that you weren't prepared for. And I think on some level this could happen to any of us, no matter, what you think it could constitute a trigger warning. So I like to just give general warnings whenever I can. A lot of the stuff we're going to be watching is actually going to be clips, but sometimes we're going to be watching like full length horror films. Okay. There's going to be things like blood, and we're going to be talking about like hate speech at some point, and we're going to be you're going to see scenes of domestic violence, and like I can't, and this is an important point, I can't ever really um, know everything that's going to trigger people, and I apologize for that. I'm going to do my best to sort of like before we watch something be like, hey, just so you know, this kind of thing is, this subject matter might come up and everything. It's not a license to say that people don't have to watch it. In fact, this is a film appreciation class. So, oh, here's eggnog. This is another bud. That's the kitty cat. Um, we call him the third pug. This isn't a license to say that, oh, you might be triggered by something, therefore you don't have to watch it. Not exactly. Um, it's because again, the whole point is sort of like we want to be able to discuss and see challenging things, but if it's a little too much, anybody deserves a break. Like if you need to step out of class or anything like that, I really want you to feel free to do that. If there's something that you're even like a little bit concerned about, and just like say like, hey, Dr. E, if you think this is going to be an issue, could you just let me know? I don't want you to feel like you have to, because again, I'm not trying to get into anybody's personal business or anything like that. But if there's any way that I can sort of assist, and again, I just want like a environment where we can just watch things and there's not going to be any surprises. I think that's sort of the goal. So there you go. That is the warning. And I will admit to you that my own taste in cinema tends to be somewhat violent, and that's something I'm gonna have to work out with my therapist, I guess. But I just, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but I do want to try to be as sensitive as possible to any sensitivities that y'all have. So let's just work together with that. So okay, on that note, I want to move to the first lecture. It's not it's somewhat representative of the types of lectures I'm going to give you ordinarily. There are these pink PowerPoint presentations and such. But really the goal here, I just have a few slides where I just want to sort of give you an idea about like what this class is all about or what we're trying to accomplish. First of all, I'm like, okay, maybe we should just start with what is cinema? I mean, I'm kind of using all these terms interchangeably, like film, cinema, motion pictures. It really is like the horse image here. Like instead of seeing like a still image, it's like anytime there's like some sort of sequential compilation of images such that you see movement. What I'm doing right here. This is a moving image. You see me moving. You see Spike moving. Yay. Okay, he doesn't want to move. So all of this stuff is the same. I just kind of want to get that out of the way right now. Whether I'm talking about film, TV, TikTok videos, YouTube videos, all of this stuff, it all falls under this rubric of moving images, video games too. And therefore, actually, I want you to think about how, even though we'll be talking pretty much mostly about TV and film, and when I say TV, I mean streaming, all that stuff, yada yada yada, how it really the techniques and uh, effects that we're going to be talking about really apply to all moving images. So another thing I want to sort of point out is, I mentioned, so I have a PhD in communication. I do use psychological methods to study the types of things that I study, but this class is housed in the communication studies department. So I want to take a minute and just like think about like why that is. And I bet you could, if I was here and I'd be like, what do you think? Like one of you favorite students of mine who sits sort of like near the front would like have an answer for me. And you would say something like, well, because we use moving images to communicate, and that is 100% correct. Um, moving images are a form of communication. They have their own language. And the cinematic language is actually not unlike, if you think about it, when you took English classes, whether in college or even high school, right? And they were teaching you how to read Shakespeare and like, oh, Shakespeare uses these motifs and all of these things in his writing, and from that he communicates and metaphor and blah blah. You can tell I'm not an English person, but it's the same way, in the same way that books, right, use the written language to communicate. Movies use visual things, and not just visual, right? We've got um, auditory cues and dialogue and all, it uses words too, but it has its own language that we have all been socialized to read. Children from the time that they're watching Sesame Street and Mister Rogers are kind of learning that, when you see a close up, it means that you're supposed to focus on somebody's emotions, right? Like that to pay attention to what's happening with their face. That's not like sort of an explicit message that, tells you what it means, but it tells you what to do. So that's what we mean by language. And that's really, I mean, kind of what this class is about, is helping you sort of, even though you can read the language and that a lot of you would respond to the same scene in a film in the same way, um, this class is supposed to help you take a step back and think about why it has that effect on you. Um, the other thing about cinema is it serves all these other sort of purposes. So it serves as like a historical document. We're going to be talking a lot about history in this class, history of film and TV, and both how history has influenced like the movies and things that we make, but also how the moving images that we make influences our history. We'll even get into like talk about televised presidential debates a little bit, which, ooh, that'll be fun because it's kind of topical for this year. I don't know if we'll talk about those, but maybe we will. I don't know. Um, Technology, cinema is also, this is a medium that it's a technological medium that's influenced by the different technology that we have available. We'll talk about how, for instance, you know, it was only when we had the technology to, do all these cool special effects that we could have like this boom in superhero movies, right? That we're currently sort of going through right now. And of course, film, TV, it's also an art form, just like a painting or a great novel or whatever. And it's sort of this reflection of, a feat of human skill, a reflection of our imagination, and it's something that we can just appreciate because it is aesthetic, it's beautiful, it has some sort of emotional impact, just like any sort of art form. And hence, we're in a film appreciation class. So what does it mean to appreciate something? Part of it is just being able to recognize what went into it, right? It's being able to recognize those different elements that make up a movie or TV show. It's also you're able to appreciate the impact that these different types of art, film, television, again, YouTube videos has on our society, for better or for worse, right? Just sort of that understanding. And then that there's that admiration you can have where even if you dislike something, you can appreciate what went into it. Like you're like, well, God, that was like a really bad movie. I'm thinking about like it's sort of like this cult classic of a bad movie, Battlefield Earth with John Travolta. And yeah, it's just sort of like it's like a bad movie, but you can still sort of appreciate like the effort that went in to make it so horrifically bad. Uh, but that's appreciation. Appreciation isn't about how much you enjoy something. It's not even how you like it. I mean, a lot of times those things do go together, but not necessarily. So, back to the whole conversation about trigger warnings and stuff like that. I just kind of want to like leave you on the idea that you might have to watch stuff in this class that you don't like. I admit I don't have to do it as much because I get to pick what we watch. And so there's that. Like, I'm not a huge musical fan. I know some of you are. I'm just not. But I'm going to see what I can do because I want to sort of like set a good example where, yeah, I can still appreciate a musical though. I don't watch them regularly, but when I do, I I have great respect for the amount of talent and vision that goes into these productions. And so that's really what it's all about. You're not going to like everything, but if you can just come out with a greater appreciation, then our work here is done. Okay, and that's the lecture. So now you've gotten sort of like an overview of the syllabus, you know a little bit about what we're going to be doing in this class, even though I know it was kind of vague. So what's the next step? Well, you need to take your syllabus quiz now. I would do it soon since some of the stuff will be fresh in your mind. Just have your syllabus open, and then you hopefully can go through and take the quiz as many times as you need, because you're only going to get full credit if you get all the questions right. But you can take it as many times as you want. So just keep taking it until you get all the questions right. The whole point is to make sure that you know what's on the syllabus. And then if we had met for class, I was going to do a screening, but you're going to do that screening on your own. What you're going to watch is an hour-long episode of a TV show. It is a TV show, though, that you don't need, it's like got standalone episodes, so you don't need to have any background, although some of you may have seen this already. In order to watch this episode, it's about an hour long. If you have Netflix, I highly recommend you watch it on Netflix because it's just better quality. Right, Eggnog? Meow, 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 meow. Let's see if they- Right, Eggnog? Yes. Let me see what it. Oh, he's not right. I was trying to make him do the thing with his teeth. He's like, eh. So you need to go look up Black Mirror on Netflix. Look for episode 1 of the 3rd season, although it's like British, so they don't call it seasons, they call it like series or something like that. It's called Nosedive. It's a much better quality than what I have posted on eCampus. I posted like a bootleg version on eCampus that's basically just like a recording of like a television screen. So it's, but I don't want to have you spend money on a Netflix account. You're not going to need that for the rest of the semester probably. So sorry, that's my cuckoo clock. Yeah, it's very distracting here. I'm realizing. I apologize. We're getting through it. Bear with me. So just watch the episode in whichever way that you can, Netflix or eCampus, and then take your weekly content quiz. Again, this is in lieu of me giving something to you in paper when we meet in class, but this is the first of those 13 quizzes I told you about. You can do it online this week, but you will be asked questions about the Black Mirror episode, and you'll be asked questions about that lecture that I just gave on appreciation and blah, 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 okay? Then I know this seems like a lot, but it's really, these are all kind of short assignments. So I don't, if you just set aside an hour, well, you got to watch the episode, but if you set aside an hour and a half, I think you could accomplish all this. Complete this short little writing assignment. It's really just like a survey with a few questions, but one of them asks you to write a paragraph. Okay. And then that's it. That's it. Only like a gazillion things to do. Syllabus quiz. Watch the Black Mirror episode. We're going to talk about it in class too. Take your content quiz and then do the short little writing assignment. Okay. So that's like 4 major things. And then show up to class on Wednesday when we will meet in person. You can see how short I am. I forgot to mention that, but you can't really tell if we're in that lecture hall, like, because I'm kind of down. But yeah, I'm only about 5 feet tall. So I know I have such a grand presence. You never would have guessed. But anyway, that covers it. So I will shut up now, and I'm going to go edit this video so you hear slightly less of my dogs barking, and I look forward to seeing you all on campus. For those of you who are watching this before the meeting, I probably will, sorry, before our regularly scheduled meeting, I probably will go to the classroom for like 30 minutes on the first day of class. But again, nobody needs to come to class for the first week. Everybody, I will see you August 26th, Wednesday. Okay, bye.